May I invite the alumni of IIT Kanpur, an angel investor, co-founder and CEO of Art Park, which is AI and Robotics Technology Park, and CE and co-founder of AI bot startup Vimagino, Mr. Umakant Soni. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, GCF, for inviting me on this exciting topic, and thanks a lot for the wonderful audience. I mean, it's not easy to get audience on Saturday mornings, but thanks a lot for making it here. I will try to make sure that we probably are able to produce something which is worthy of your time. So today's talk, I wanted to actually talk about a very important perspective, and it's not just important from perspective of our companies, but it's also important perspective from the nation as well, right? And so what we are looking at a fundamental shift. So I'm going to try and take you through the fundamental shift that's actually taking place, and what are the kind of possibilities that that we are seeing, and some of them we are actually exploring at Art Park. And what is it, the key takeaways that could be there, because in the end, all of you together are actually building this future of India. You're doing as an individual innovator, as companies, you are the ones who are actually going to make this future possible. So I'll try to go through the immense possibilities that future holds for all of us, and would love to then take up questions and learn as much as I can share. So thanks a lot for inviting me. A quick background of myself, almost close to 20 years of errors in building technology, product, strategy, AI investing, entrepreneurship, and now with policy. Of course, I'm an alumnus of IIT Kanpur, graduated in 2001. And last 12 years have been in AI space. I started India's first AI chatbot startup in 2009-10. We built the technology, but we were not very successful in commercializing it because everybody said that you should move to the valley to commercialize, and we couldn't move. And it was a big lesson for me personally that why couldn't we actually build such an ecosystem in India, which can actually back these kind of cutting edge companies. So that's one of the reasons I spent a year in the Valley trying to understand the ecosystem and how that ecosystem plays a large part in creating the next generation of innovations. And I came back very determined to build that. I started India's first AI focused fund called Pi Ventures. We raised almost close to $30 million. And we have backed around close to 12 plus companies in that area. Some of them are leading not just in India, but globally as well. Post that, one of the interesting things that I saw was that while we actually had Government of India help us with setting up the initial fund money to start a fund of fund, what I could see very clearly was that India's AI ecosystem wasn't that deep. So we had like 12, 13 companies. Maybe we could invest in another 5, 6 more. But if I look at Israel, I could look at Canada, I could look at China, of course, and US. The kind of depth that was actually available in the AI innovation ecosystem wasn't matched by something in India. So actually, I went back to government and I said that whatever I've learned, I'm happy to help. And I helped Neeti in coming out with the AI strategy for India. I also advised to Department of Science and Technology on NMICPS mission, which is $500 million of investment into AI research and innovation ecosystem. And I'm also trying to give my inputs to the National AI Mission. I also represent India as a nominated expert on GPAY, Global Partnership on AI, focused on innovation and commercialization. So what is it that we have been learning around us? A very quick perspective on Art Park. So AI and Robotics Technology Park is a very unique institution, if you were to ask me. What we have done is that we have actually, tried to bring what is called as the triple helix model of innovation, which is quite popular in Europe and other innovative countries, but it's not so popular in India, where we bring industry, academia, and government together. And we've also tried to bring in societal perspective, because one of the big changes that you're going to see with AI is around society. And we try to sort of like make the four, quadrant model. So ArtPark is a Section 8 company. It's a not-for-profit. It is supported, promoted by Indian Institute of Science and supported by AI Foundry with the seed grant of 230 crores from Department of Science and Technology under NMICPS mission and Government of Karnataka. So let's look at it. What is it that we are seeing in terms of India? Now, if I look at it, what's happening on the exciting world of cloud and a whole bunch of things which are making computing more accessible, that the exponential growth of computing, the kind of computing that you have at your disposal today far exceed anything that previous generations have actually looked at, right? And on the other side, you look at the democratic potential that India has got, right? Which will mean that we will actually have the largest amount of working population in next 10 to 15 years. What it means for Indian economy? Can we leverage these two major developments and march towards what we call as the $10 trillion economy? Because it's very rarely that the computing and innovation explosion that we're going to see in next 15 years because of what we call as the hyper innovation, that the technology innovation and the business model innovation is actually happening together. It can be really, really beneficial for India. So let me just dive a little bit deeper and unpack this. So if you look at, the previous years, so you had like, of course, ARPANET turn into internet. And then, you had, e-commerce revolution that actually started to sweep the world. Then we had mobile revolution. And then, so the technology revolution was followed always by the business model, innovation. And typically there was a lag, right? But what's happening with AI, robotics, 5G, cloud, all of these massive innovations coming together is that it's not only the technology innovations which are happening, but the business model innovation is also happening together. So what is the resultant is what we call as hyper innovation, where a huge amount of change will actually happen in a very short amount of time. And given that, we are going to have this sizable working population, if you're able to combine that with hyper innovation, we could actually potentially have a very credible march towards a $10 trillion economy by 2030 as a nation. And of course, as a nation means that as companies, as individuals, we will all prosper and benefit. So let's look at it, right? What do we mean by that, right? Can we, dig down a bit? What is actually really changing? What's the fundamental, spark that's actually kind of ignite this whole thing, right? So on the left-hand side, you can see it's a very interesting, graph, and which actually tells you some very, very interesting perspective. So if you look at, the whole industrial economy, right? So industrial economy was born when you could sell the excess produce of one place to another place, right? And the way you do it, you would do it by transportation. So you connected everything, right? Connected everything by road, by rail, by flight, So 1975, that was the peak of the industrial economy, right? And we connected up to billion places, right? So if you look at on the left hand side, right, the top of at the height of the industrial economy, which peaked in 1975, you can see the tangible and the intangible, right? So, almost if you can see the tangible assets were almost like maybe, 5 times of the intangible assets, right? And, then we started to connect, people, right? Through internet, through email, through social media, and we are going to connect up to 5 billion people, right? Now, what was the resultant of that? Resultant of that was that you could actually sell the excess knowledge that one had to another person or other company which actually did not have that knowledge, right? And you could profit by this trade, and we call it the knowledge economy, right? And India, and thanks to all of the efforts from policymakers and NASSCOMs and associations like yourself, has benefited massively from that, right? And this knowledge economy, you can see that it is it's starting to peak now, right? So if you look at it, it's very interesting. The ratio of tangible and intangible has kept on actually, it's gone through an interesting mix. So if you look at 1995 to 2005, where we're talking about the intangible, being almost like 4 times of the tangible assets, right? So it clearly shows the shift in the economy, right? So that you are going from this industrial economy to knowledge economy, right? Now, what's coming next? And this is very interesting for us as a nation to ponder, as a company to ponder, as an individual to ponder, right? So we are going to, in next 10 to 15 years, we're going to connect 5 billion connected people, right, with 50 billion devices, and they are going to be on, cloud, on the edge, wherever they are, right? And it's a massive explosion, because what's going to happen is that we are going to see an economy where, it's going to be primarily digital and physical experiences, so-called intangibles, right, which will drive more than the 90% of the value chain, right? So what's going to happen? You're going to actually be creating intelligent experiences. And what do you mean by that, right? So you take a look at Alexa, right? I mean, all of us have now one Alexa in our homes, right? So what does it give you? It gives you this digital intangible experience of owning a personal assistant, right? Now, earlier, personal assistant could be only had by the CEOs or probably in the earlier times by the kings and the queens, right? But imagine now that's there. The illusion of having a personal assistant is there with you, right? So you're actually paying for that experience, right? And this is what is the future, where we will be buying, creating, selling intelligent and intangible experiences, bartering with each other, right? And this economy is kind of very interesting, because if you look at it, right, it's going to create what we call as $15.7 trillion of new economic value, right? So we are at $3 trillion. This is a massive amount of new economic value that we could actually potentially capture. However, it also depends upon, how much ready are we to actually capture that, right? And it's interesting to see that, right? I mean, right now, based on the preparedness where we are, we probably, the half of this might go to China, right? That's what they say. We might capture up to $1 trillion, right? Of course, that's a large number, but I feel that, given where we are, right, as a nation, the potential is much higher, right? So let me, AI is a term which used or abused by a lot of people, right? So I just want to unpack that a bit. So AI is a very generic term. It's been around. People have been using multiple ways to actually get machines to mimic human behavior. And so I can summarize them in kind of like 4 waves, right? Wave 1 was like, up till 2010 or so, where you could actually have these handcrafted machine learning systems. So most of these recommendation engines or most of the machine learning methods actually they come from there, right? So you actually handcraft these machine learning algorithms, and you basically use them to respond to things which were not very clear when you wrote them, right? I'm just trying to be really simple. Wave 2 is where you could actually do this statistically with large amount of data and compute, especially in form of cloud, came together, right? And you could practice what's called as deep learning. And so today, if you see all the autonomous car driving examples or things that you see around, they actually are driven by this revolution called deep learning. The next wave is actually starting to happen, where you take this deep learning, but deep learning used to work really well in one narrow domain, right? But you could actually broaden it, right? And marry it with robotics and cloud, and you could actually have things which could work in variety of interesting areas, right? And that's what we basically talk about, human-like AI, right? Which is going to be a huge thing. Of course, wave 4 is interesting, and it's been an object of interesting debate in not only in Hollywood but now in Bollywood as well. But it's like we are far away. We are far away from intelligence or consciousness or any of those things, right? I mean, to be really precise here, what we have here now, right? So we have image and speech parity, right? Apart from success in strategy games, right? Like Go and chess, and it's kind of very interesting, right? So we've kind of like gone past if you look at image or if you look at speech, right? And we are also able to nail interesting games, right? Which is AlphaGo. If you have not watched this brilliant documentary, you should go and watch it, because it's very insightful. It actually talks a lot about, it's there on Netflix. It talks a lot about like I think it's also there on YouTube. It talks a lot about, like, how a human person goes through this emotion, right? And I had an interesting conversation with Vladimir Kramnik, one of the chess world champions. I mean, when I was growing up, chess was a big thing, and we were actually sitting down on a dinner, and I was asking him because he was the second for Garry Kasparov, and he got defeated by Deep Blue, right? And he has been playing with a lot of these AI systems over a period of time, and it was interesting to hear his perspective because he recently went to DeepMind, and he played with one of the interesting things that are coming out from there called Deep Chess. And he was saying that it went from not knowing anything to beating me in like 7 hours, right? And it's just very, very interesting because, of course, it's a very narrow domain, but it actually points to the possibility of what could actually happen in future, right? And if you see some of the things that are now starting to come out, like GPT-3, right? Generative pre-trained transformers. It's a completely new approach to a natural language processing. And you can see that with one shot, it is getting really, really good, right? Of course, you need 175 billion pre-trained parameters. And there is another one called WuDao 2.0, which works with Chinese. It's got 175 trillion parameters. Of course, these need large amount of data and compute to make it work. But they point to an interesting future where some of this will become more practicable and would be used to solve problems, right? And that is where I feel India has actually a very interesting perspective to share, right? We have really good amount of data diversity. We also have close to 8% of global AI talent in here. And if you look at LinkedIn, it's actually probably growing by a massive number. Number of people learning AI on Coursera, 26% of them actually come from India. That's more than any other country, right? So we definitely have that. We also have demonstrated some very interesting perspectives. We have been able to roll out Aadhaar. It's a massive, biometric ID system. We've been able to actually roll it out across our entire society, right? 1.3 billion people. It's a massive, task that I see. So we have diversity of data, we have talent, and more importantly, we have problems in India, which can be actually leapfrogged. If you look at, healthcare, our doctor to patient ratio is really bad. It's like, we need 3 million additional doctors by 2034, right? Which is very difficult to happen because it takes 14, 15 years of practice to become a good doctor, right? Education, transportation, housing, we are talking about finance, right? We've got 230 million people who actually have no bank accounts, right? So we clearly need different kind of approaches. And that is where India could become the new hotbed of AI innovations, because we have the desperation to leapfrog. Apart from diversity, talent, and the problem data, we have the desperation to leapfrog. And that is very important. So I think all of us are very fortunate that we are here in India, where we have all of these key ingredients for AI present here. And some of it we are trying to demonstrate at ArtPark. What are the new possibilities, right? So one of the interesting ones we are actually exploring is an avatar robotic nurse called Asha. And the idea is that this robot could be operating in Japan, and you could operate it, tele-autonomously from India. So maybe a nurse sitting in one of the villages in Kerala would be able to take care of a patient in Japan, and she would be able to converse in Malayalam, and on the other side, the robot will actually converse with the patient in Japanese, right? And it will happen in real time. Now we've, just actually this, we recently, Asha went to Florida to take part in this XPRIZE competition, which is about avatar robotics. But it presents very interesting perspective, because what it will actually allow us to do is to transport, skill and emotions across boundaries, right? So in the first innovation or revolution, especially with the knowledge economy, we've been able to outsource IT and BPO work, right? Where the processes are already digitized, the data is already digitized, right? But the second large wave is going to be these physical processes, right? Now with these, avatar robots, we can actually, outsource them as well. And imagine if you could actually build up the infrastructure where even from the villages, people could attempt, such problems. It will be fantastic, because it will actually put our demographic dividend to use. Imagine a person who's in village today is earning like maybe $5 a day, it could be earning $5 an hour. It almost 10x the amount of money that he could make. And it's very interesting area. We are actually exploring much deeper in that as well.
Apologies, sir, I would only want to request you. We have our next panel. So if you would like to, sir, summarize the.
Sure.
Thank you very much, and apologies.
Absolutely. So these are some of the possibilities that we are seeing, right? Similarly, in healthcare also, we are seeing some possibilities. We rolled out, X-ray Setu, which is actually allowing, even in COVID wave 2, it allowed doctors, rural doctors and X-ray technicians to quickly get to assess the quality of lung X-ray images. And it was instrumental in them saving lives. And it points to a future where more and more, healthcare will be driven from the edge, right? Same is the case what we are seeing in terms of the financial inclusion, right? Where you have data asset driven digital credit scoring with secure confidential compute, solving problems for people who don't have assets, but who are actually having data to prove. They're working with gig workers, and it's an interesting perspective that we are seeing. Another interesting thing that we're working on, what we are seeing is like we need to create the learning for AI age. So we have a project Eklavya that's working. We have actually a live learning lab that's coming up. It's very, very interesting. One of the interesting possibilities I wanted to talk about was this whole urban mobility. Instead of trying to go through the roads, we could fly. And there's a huge bunch of areas that are coming up with that, where you could actually have an autonomous drones, carrying people or logistics, and it's rich with possibilities. We are also working on some very interesting areas in tele-autonomous driving, which could point to a perspective where probably a driver in India could be driving big cars in Australia or somewhere else, right? So this is in short where we are and what possibilities that we are seeing, especially with AI and cloud working together. It's a very open collaborative model at ArtPark, where you can come, whether you're a startup, you're a large industry, you could come and collaborate with us. We will work with you. We're also setting up a $100 million venture fund to back AI and robotics companies. So any one of you who are in that area where you're leveraging AI, you're leveraging cloud, in some of these areas, we'd be very happy to chat with you. If you want to join it, as a partner, work with us. We'll be happy to. You can leverage your CSR grants for collaboration. In short, we want to actually create the future possibilities of digital India through AI, robotics, and cloud, working all here. And we would love to welcome participation from JCM members. We feel that all of us have to work together to create this future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for all the insights and talking about all these, the changing face of the economy and the future. Thank you once again, sir.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me. Have a great day.